We've arrived at the part 2 of the anniversary, and you know what time it is. Who is better? We've got the Red Legends Limited Kaioken Goku, and on the other hand, we've got Legends Limited Vegeta, a green unit. Both have their pros and cons, and we're gonna break down in every aspect to get our conclusion about who is the better unit between these two. Question for you guys, who do you guys think is the better unit? Let me know in the comment section below, but for now, let's get into this. For these videos, it's a default, we gotta go into their kit, but I'm not gonna speak on everything in their kit, just the things I think are key factors. So we've got Goku here, he's a red melee unit, and pre-transform, the first time he switches into the battlefield, he gets a green card, but he will also get a regular card if he has 3 or fewer, and always get health, 10%, which is a lot. Coverno and Ki, those two are also standard when you enter the battlefield. Now it's important to note that the amount of times that he switches in and out the battlefield affect how powerful he will be. So the first and second time, he will have 100% damage inflicted, but the effects will reset every single time he switches or transforms. So the first time is 100%, but then if he switches out, then that 100% disappears, and then the second time, he will get that 100% back. But on the third time, it then goes to 50%, and on the fourth time, it's also 50%. So the fifth time onwards, he's not going to be as strong. So you need to capitalize on his damage when you can on those first few switches in. If he wins a Dokabaki impact, which is the time those taps, he will get damage inflicted 50% up. And a very big buff to himself, if the enemy uses a vanish, he will get 20 ki, but 30% strike damage, which lasts for 20 timer counts, which is a big reason for his huge amounts of damage. It should also be noted, he has the sustained damage type of unique gauge, where when it becomes full, he will get some buffs accordingly. For example, damage guard, healing, type neutral against damage received, and he destroys 2 of the enemy cards. His green card pre-transform is just the regular standstill, and he's able to get a bunch of buffs. The main 2 I think are best are type neutral and draw speed. But if you press his main ability and transform into Kaioken, you'll get damage inflicted 100% up, immediately boosting his stats. His main ability in Kaioken gives him a blue card, HP, and he'll also get 100% to his vanishing gauge. Special move damage goes up as well, 30%, which is uncancelable. His green card will now become a solar flare, which inflicts the enemy with a flash if it hits, and will destroy the enemy's entire hand. You get the same buffs from before, so cover no, type neutral, and draw speed. And his blue card now nullifies endurance, of course, because he's a transforming unit, he doesn't have an ultimate, so that will be his legendary finish. Now let's get into Vegeta. Vegeta is a green unit, range type, and it's important to note that he has revival in his kit. So he can't transform at will like Kaioken Goku, but when his first life is taken out, he will come back and be even better. On battlefield entry, he gets a card and ki, which is essential, but on the defensive end, if the enemy hits him, he's going to destroy 2 cards, take the enemy ki, and seal the enemy's main ability for 5 timer counts. Now what's good about this effect is that the activations will reset once his unique gauge becomes full, so it can happen more than once in a game, breaking the enemy's combo. Vegeta also gets extra damage inflicted if he wins a Dokabaki impact, which is very nice. To do more damage, Vegeta's able to build up as he does more cards. So on his first card, he gets 20% damage inflicted, but once he gets to his 4th card, he will draw more cards, so that damage inflicted can be put to use. Moving on, given he's a revival unit, when the enemy hits an ultimate, awakened art, or rising rush, his sub counts will be reduced by 7, which allows him to switch in and take the hit for his revival to activate, keeping your allies safe. And regarding his unique gauge, he has the charge type unique gauge, which means that when he charges his ki, his gauge will fill. If you want to empty his gauge, you have to use a strike or a blast, but once his gauge is filled, he'll get a bunch of buffs, such as damage inflicted, which is uncancelable and can happen 3 times, as well as damage guard in the same effect. His green card pre-transform is just a regular standstill, but you get cover null and ki, which is good. And then his blue card, first time, it's able to do 150% damage inflicted, but the second time onwards, he will only do 30%, but it's also enemy damage received up, so technically it's about 180% damage inflicted. It should also be noted that his main ability doesn't force him to transform because he's a revival unit, but it will draw a blue card, heal him, and immediately unseal his special moves, which are the blue cards, in case they are. Now if he revives, his main ability will give him a blue card, and here he will be able to do his legendary finish, but more importantly, there's the added effect of him getting 100% to his vanishing gauge. There are a lot more effects added to his revival or entry, where before he only got a card and key, now he'll be getting a bunch of buffs every time he enters the battlefield, such as protect hand, damage inflicted, and a couple other buffs that only happen one time. His green card now becomes dynamic cutter, and if he hits it, he's able to get 50% to his vanishing gauge, and it can combo everything. Think of it like a beam similar to Triku, but if he misses it, it's a long animation, so that could be a downside to that. And his blue card now nullifies endurance, given that it's his legendary finish. That's all regarding their kits. Let's get into the actual debate now. So the first category we're going to start with is individual value. How are they on their own? Goku being a red melee type and Vegeta being a ranged green type, as well as looking at their kit and their numbers, I think it's very apparent that Goku is going to be the man you're going to like here. His damage numbers are just too crazy. He's going to hit you and you're going to feel like a nuke is literally breaking you down. Where on the other hand, Vegeta just doesn't hit as hard. So even though he has the survivability factor, he'll be doing less damage while not necessarily being the greatest defensive unit ever. He does have that survivability and that's not to be ignored, but it just means it's an extra stop in your way. Where on the other hand, Vegeta won't necessarily be able to break you down in one go, though his combos are longer. Looking at Goku as well, there's just more ways for him to stay alive regarding his healing, and because his damage numbers are higher, it makes the battle work out much faster than if you was to be attacking with Vegeta. So in a one-on-one, I think most people would take Goku just off brute force. In some cases, if we pair up units, we'd usually be doing a mechanic versus mechanic, but this is just Goku being the stronger unit, and that's enough to make him better than Vegeta on his own. One thing I think I didn't mention as well, Goku, if he wins a Dokubaki Impact, will specifically get a blue card if he beats Vegeta, and that means he can chain it immediately to do even more damage successfully. He's really built for the offenses, and in short, offenses will win you games. Defense is very valuable, but if that defensive character doesn't do more damage, at the end of the game, the unit that does more damage will win. But what I will say is, even though I think it's Goku quite clear cut, it could be argued for Vegeta's side to say that he has the ability to break combos, keeping him in the game and making this a much closer comparison than some people might think. But just to conclude, for individual value, we're taking Goku. Now, if we look at them in another way, we gotta talk about their team value. This will take into account meta factors and how they fit as a piece on any team that they can be used on. And I think we should emphasize that I think Goku's main trait is his offensive capabilities, while on Vegeta's end, even though he's a ranged type unit, I think his main trait is actually his defense, combo breaking, and survivability. It should be a no-brainer that Goku does the main damage, but the best way I see meta value is that if you're going to be a damaging type unit, you need to be the highest damaging unit on your team, and if you're not, at the best you're second rate, and unless the meta is just so suffocated by these units, in most cases it isn't necessary to hold that value super high. So in Goku's case, I would argue that he is top 5 in damage numbers in the game right now, but I think one thing that's important to note is that his element is holding him back quite a bit. With MUI Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Goku from Daima, even though that team is much less popular right now, if you did use that team, you will see that you're able to break through this Kaioken Goku easily, where on Vegeta's side, the only real threat he has to deal with is Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, so you can imagine his time is much easier. I guess you could say Tien. But let's be real, not saying that Tien is bad, but really and truly, he's not front gunning in offense when it comes to the battlefield. But if we talk about Vegeta, his survivability, he doesn't aim to play the main character on the battlefield. He can be very versatile in the sense that he can do offense if need be, but if you prioritize him for defense, he plays his role as a revival unit, keeping the team alive, enabling you to have free units for the longest time possible. And I think for the way he slots in on a team, he's more valuable, while also having his element not exactly be countered in the meta by amazing damaging units. Also, with him being range type and a powerful opponent, he syncs super well with Ultra Perfect Cell, somebody that can break through units very easily. With his permanent nullification of endurance, and he also has endurance himself with buff cancellation, he syncs up super well, while also there being the addition of their elements. So green works very well with red because green is type advantage to blue, which is type advantage to red. So green protects red from blues, making them the perfect partners for each other. Whereas with Kaioken Goku, I would argue there's less synergy, but you're using units that just do damage together to make the team whole. Not to say that's a bad option, because the damage is very much so there, but for consistency in all departments, Vegeta's teams are just going to be more concrete in my opinion. And I think most of you guys will attest to that beyond the individual value. So for this segment, I'm going to be taking Vegeta, as I think he's more versatile on a team, he adds more to a team while also being the best at what he does on his team, because revival is not something you can just take out. Even if you wanted to argue that you would use Blue Beerus or something, he's type advantage over him, and anybody else who deals with revival doesn't really stop his revival. But to conclude, we're taking Vegeta. Even though his damage is worse than Goku's, and I would say it's noticeable, it's not a huge margin to the point where I'd reduce him to say Goku is more valuable for a team option, while also having the ability to break combos, have a great element, and have his revival layer. We gotta talk about the art cards here, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on them. I gotta compare the pre-transformation, then the post-transformation, then come to some sort of rationale. So looking at the pre-transformation, I think it's a very clear wash here. Vegeta's art is just better. Even though Goku's art managed to capture the feelings of Saiyan Saga, Vegeta's art is a lot more vibrant and his pose is a lot more menacing. You could argue that with Goku's art, it's not the intention to be menacing, but he's got his serious face on, and by comparison, it doesn't pull me in as much. So I think without a doubt, we're taking Vegeta's pre-transformation. But if we look at their post-transformations, it's a much closer battle. I think for me, I'm gonna take Goku, but it's not by much. With his Kaioken colors mixing in with the Kamehameha, that red and blue is just beautiful on the eyes. Very bright, but not to the point where it's hurting you. But with Vegeta's, they've then incorporated the red color to show his power levels rising. They've kept the same purple, so it still has that vibrant feel, but the red makes it feel like this guy is really the villain. So for the post-transformation, like I said, I'm taking Goku's, but it's not by a huge margin. But if we come to a rationale, because the pre-transformation, I feel that Vegeta's is much better than Goku's, but even though I said the post-transformation, Goku's is much better than Vegeta's, if we came to an average, it would show that Vegeta has more points in this category. So for the art cards, I'm going to be taking Vegeta. But this category here is the most subjective category out of anyone in this video. So let me know in the comment section which art card you like more, as there's no right or wrongs for this specific category. Now this is going to be the last category of the video, and it's based on longevity. Longevity is something that people are very much so concerned about because they don't want their chrono crystals to go to waste. You'd want them to last as long as possible while being in top tier shape. Now for this, it depends on their surrounding factors, but I could argue it based on the units we have currently in the game. I think with MUI Goku existing, he's going to last for a decent time unless the developers decide to counter him. And because of that, while Goku having no survivability, he's gonna be an amazing threat against Kaioken Goku. Kaioken Goku is a high damage unit, and that means he's gonna be very susceptible to power creep. We see it all the time with every unit in the game. They have high damage when they release, they're on the boost, they're thriving, and then only 1 month later, they're unable to do anything because they've lost their ability on the boost, or new units have released that just power creep them, implying that they're stronger than the previous ones, making the units that you had just then useless. But this could also be argued with Vegeta. We've seen a lot of units with revival past the boost no longer be able to tank anything, so that second life is really more of an inconvenience than an actual hindrance against the enemy. It doesn't take much to get out of that first life, so you're not valuing it as much. But I think one thing that gives Vegeta the benefit of the doubt is his ability to break combos. Also, in addition, that there's no major purples that you should be scared of when it comes to damage power. But then you could add the extra argument to say, because there's no great purples right now, even though we did get SSBE Vegeta, there's a high chance that we'll get a great purple in the near future. So which way do you want to go? Power creep is for sure guaranteed, but a purple unit coming out isn't. And because Vegeta has revival, even if he gets defensively power crept, he will still have the ability to break combos. So for this one, I think Vegeta has the slight edge on longevity in this game. You could consider teams as well, and if you want to argue that because Goku's on Sun Family, he'll have more life, I would counter that by saying because he's on Sun Family, he has more odds of getting countered. Sun Family units are very popular in Dragon Ball Legends, and when the devs drop one, they make sure to make it good because everybody's gonna want that unit, especially if there's a Gohan in addition. Whereas I wouldn't say the same for Vegeta Clan or Powerful Opponent. Saiyan Saga as well is not exactly a popular tag, so both of them have the same odds there, but Vegeta's two other tags have less odds odds of him being replaced on, keeping his value as high as possible for as long as possible. So that's another reason why I'd say Goku's longevity is going to be worse. I think with those points, it's quite irrefutable unless the developers throw a fast one, but if that happens, it's something I couldn't have predicted. Just like in the 6th anniversary, where they started dropping unlimited units that have buff cancellation to take out fusing Super Vegeta, who a lot of us thought would have amazing longevity, given that his Rising Rush can always win. The future is simply unpredictable because it's at the developer's mercy, but based on the factors we have right now, I think it's Vegeta that deserves to win this category. Well, that's going to make the video. I don't think these two units are far off from each other in any category if we're being real, and right now, if I was being honest, I think Goku probably has the favor from the masses, but the people that do use Vegeta, in this case, especially in comparison to part 1, they done a great job with him. They gave him compensation, and what I mean by that is Vegeta units, they're typically worse, and in this case, Vegeta is offensively worse, but they compensated him by giving him combo breaking and a survivability layer that doesn't just break straight away. Revival is a very heavy layer, and you have to deal with it, whereas with endurance, you can nullify that, especially if the unit doesn't have buff cancellation, and I think that's where SSBE Vegeta lacks. But this Vegeta here, you have to get through that first wall. He can also do decent damage, and he also breaks your combo accordingly with his kit. I think those are big factors to keep him on par with this new Goku, who doesn't have survivability, but is built strictly for his offensive capabilities. So well done to the developers for designing part 2. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press the subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.